iPad, so I'm relying on both Trent and Jamie here tonight to try to invite our guest and go down the agenda. Trent, you had a revision slightly or revision of order for the agenda today?
Yes, sir, I do. And so I'll just sort of be a little candid about it. And what we wanted to start off with today was a visit with some of our Clackamas legislators and then roll into what I think would be a natural sort of listening session with our from our cities and our jurisdictions here to share with them some things that are top of mind. However, some events in the last 24 hours have changed the schedule of many of our legislators and our supporting legislative staff who were able to join us this evening. And so I'm recommending, since we record this, that we start with the jurisdictions sort of doing a round robin about their legislative priorities here in 2026. Happy New Year. Um, and then, give some time for those other events that are taking place right now for legislators to conclude and give them a chance or an opportunity to come. We won't collect as many as we were anticipating. We might only have some staff, but just so that y'all know, the governor's announcement yesterday, I believe, inspired a caucus meeting for the Senate Democrats that's happening this evening, and then the shooting in Portland is also, and there's another briefing going on for those folks, and they've invited quite a healthy amount of um, public officials and lawmakers for a briefing on what's going on there. So that's also taking place like right now, and so we're going to give that time to mature. Of course, those are very important topics that we want our legislators to be aware of and informed on. And I think it's very understandable. So we're just going to pivot to taking an opportunity on that for the agenda, if that's what you agree to. But don't want to jump ahead of like introductions and everything there if we want to do that first.
Okay. First of all, I want to announce, thank you, Trent. First of all, I want to announce that co-chair Mayor Brian Hodson has a dealing with an emergency at his workplace. So we hope all is well there. So we're again, I'll be kind of chairing this tonight versus Mayor Hodson, but relying on both Trent and Jamie to steer because I'm having some technical issues tonight. And so let's do introductions, and I'll go down as I see them. Councillor Sacco.
Hello, Councillor Sacco, City of Tualatin, and I'm Valerie Pratt's alternative here tonight.
Okay, great. Commissioner Helm.
Commissioner Helm from Clackamas County.
Right. Mr. Brashear.
Good evening, everyone. Dwight Brashear. I am the transit director for the city of Wilsonville and representing urban transit providers.
Okay, great. Mayor Buck.
Hi, good evening. Mayor Joe Buck, Lake Oswego. Good to see everyone.
Great, thank you. Councillor Callahan.
Good evening, everyone. Council President of Happy Valley, Josh Callahan.
Thank you. Mr. Cernak.
Kenny Cernak with the Hamlet of Beaver Creek representing CPOs.
Okay, great. Mayor Beatty.
Lisa Beatty, Mayor of Milwaukee. I'm the alternate to Council President Anderson, who I thought was going to be on here, and I imagine he's going to sign in unless he got pulled into one of those legislative calls. I may also hop off for a call about the Portland situation, but I'm going to try and listen as long as I can.
Great, thank you. Mayor Kaiser.
Scott Kaiser, Mayor of Molalla.
Thank you. Mayor Milch.
Michael Milch, Mayor of Gladstone.
Thank you. Mr. Gornick.
Paul Gornick from Oak Lodge Water Services.
Thank you. Councillor Sheldon.
Good evening, Rich Sheldon, City Councilor for the City of Sandy. Lots of cities thrown in that.
Thank you. Mayor Bliastowski.
Hi, everybody. Roy Bialysowski, Mayor of West Lane.
Okay, thank you. Mayor O'Neill.
Good evening, everyone. Mayor O'Neill of Wilsonville.
Okay. Mr. Wood.
Todd Wood, Canby Area Transit, representing rural transit districts.
Okay, great. Trent, that's all I can see on my screen. So if I missed anyone.
pretty good coverage.
Okay.
Then Jamie and I are here to help you through the meeting.
Okay, as soon as we get a quorum, we will do the business of the meeting, but we'll just postpone that till a little bit later this evening. Okay, so carry on, Trent. Jamie.
All right, thank you very much. So for those folks who are listening who are from the legislative offices, just we reversed our agenda tonight to give some of the folks who are coming in a little late with those meetings time to get through some of those external meetings that are happening tonight. And we have this recording here for our jurisdictions to talk about some of their top priorities. I'll go ahead and kick it off preliminarily from the county's perspective, and of course give Commissioner Helm and Commissioner Savas an opportunity to weigh in. The Board of County Commissioners approved the county's legislative agenda in early December. It is focused around two big priorities. One of those is our recovery campus, which is in the unincorporated area. We have a property there just nearby the DEQ, close to Camp Withicum, where we want to develop a recovery campus that has 70 recovery beds as part of our recovery-oriented system of care. That's still a project that is a top 10 priority for the board, and so we are continuing to move forward with seeking funding for that project. We want to have a singular focus on that request during the legislative session. And then everything else around our priority, and we had this discussion with the board, is in recognition of the anticipated budget challenges that the state is advertising, for lack of a better phrase, be in defense mode, be in preparation mode, try to find as much data as we can to arm our legislators with information so that they can defend those services that serve all of our counties or all of our jurisdictions within the county. So it's very short. Those are I would say, my top two mission objectives walking into the session, knowing full well that was blown up a little bit yesterday, perhaps with the governor's announcement around transportation topics, and that could adjust a few things, but still would like us to remain focused on what the board has directed there. And so that's a real quick version of what the county will be aiming for right now. Commissioner Helm and Commissioner Savas, do you have anything that you'd like to add before we ask the next jurisdiction?
I do not. Commissioner Helm?
No, just that I hope we don't waste a whole lot of time going through this whole deja vu thing all over again on transportation. I think everyone knows where we stand, but if we have to go back and do battle again, we have really a lot more priority things we could be working on versus regurgitating the same topic. I wish that ODOT would just get their act together and the governor would listen to those of us who have spoken very loud about tolling, and to even mention it again is a real big problem for all of us. So I hope we can move on.
Yeah. Agreed. So yeah, thank you. Back to you, Trent.
Great. I see a hand from Mayor Kaiser, which I assume is a question, but it's also him volunteering to go as the next jurisdiction. Thank you, Mayor Kaiser, for volunteering.
I don't know what the jurisdiction, what you requesting of me. I got in a little late, but what I did want to say is I was a part of the no gas tax referendum. And one of the things that is being considered is there is a signature gathering going on, I believe until June, on stop tolling. And it is being considered by the entire group that was involved in stopping the gas tax. So keep your ears open, and it might be happening soon. I think we have a meeting in the next couple of weeks to discuss which direction the group's going to go. But that group will not be stopping. We're going to keep going and getting signatures. And it sounds like the stop the tolling is the next kind of bipartisan issue that we can go after that will attract everybody's attention across the state. And what was it you would like me to talk about in my jurisdiction, Trent?
Great. Yeah. So maybe I should just quickly run over that. In your agenda, on the front page, you'll see the 3 bullet points here. We're just asking our jurisdictions to share, like, what are your top priorities for the 2026 session? What are you working on, or are you working with any legislators to try to introduce a bill, just to give us a flavor of what those topics might be? And or are you applying for any capital projects during the session? It could be no to all of those things. This is just an opportunity to take everyone's pulse and see what we're all working on together.
It's a no to everything, but we'll be keeping an eye on what they try ramming down the system that takes away from home rule charter.
The best part of it. All right. Thank you, Malala. How about Wilsonville next on my Brady Bunch screen here? Mayor O'Neill.
Thank you. We're focused on we passed some top legislative priorities with our city council, ensuring that Oregon housing needs analysis rules and the model code are aligned with legislative intent. We're trying to, we want to expand infrastructure financing programs that support housing and job creation. And as you guys get tired of hearing from me, but we are still with the momentum of getting the Boone Bridge replacement. We're moving hard on that, trying to get preliminary site studies. And we're doing that at the state and federal area. One specific technical fix is to HB 2658 from the last session. HB 2658 prohibits cities from requiring frontage improvements when a property owner makes changes within certain limitations. Our city is concerned that the bill as written does not take into account potential traffic impacts from improvement. And I've been provided an example, which is a good one. A restaurant could add a drive-through window for less than $150,000 and totally change the traffic flow on their property, and the city would have no ability to request a change. So we don't have a standalone bill, but we're hoping that we can make that as part of a general fix with another bill.
Thank you, Mayor. That one is one of those technical in the weeds details that us jurisdictions get to think about all the time that can just be lost in the quickness of a legislative topic. All right, next on my screen here is City of Sandy, Councilor Sheldon.
Yeah, good evening and thank you. No specific legislation, although to second what Mayor Kaiser said, and specifically around the Government Ethics Commission and some of the rules that have come down. I know we stand in opposition of some of that stuff, and I'm hoping for some positive coming out of the legislature this year. Our main ask and our main condition that we have going on out in Sandy is our wastewater and water challenges. And so I suspect that we'll hopefully ask the legislature again for some money, as it's a very large project for a much smaller population. And there was some traction on that sounds like maybe some even changes to what would be allowed for alternative discharge methods. And so I think we want to continue to explore that while at the same time continuing our exploration of maybe moving out to Gresham with that. So that's where we're at.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Lake Oswego, Mayor Beck.
Thanks, Trent. Our council hasn't discussed anything in particular with regards to the short session, but I think the topic that's been most top of mind, kind of related to what Mayor O'Neill said, is just around housing, the housing legislation, and kind of. Well, I don't know if they're going to introduce any additional housing legislation, but we kind of have issues with the legislation they've already passed in the last long session. And as we come to implement it, I know, we're all having to now redo our housing needs. They changed the framework for how they calculate the housing needs analysis. And it's just a lot of these exercises. It's not changing what we're doing. We end up spending all this time going through these kind of numerical exercises for really for nothing, and so so we're attuned to that, kind of akin to the home rule thing. We do have a couple. We are also doing a new wastewater treatment plant. We're not planning on asking. We hadn't asked the state for any money for that. We kind of have it funded through some a federal loan program and through the rates. But we are building a new fire station, we're replacing an existing fire station that's very, very old. And it's a fire station that houses our wildland fire rig that gets sent out to lots of mutual aid. And so but we also know that there's not a lot of money. So we don't feel like this is the year to be asking for money, but we'll try. We'll try and um, we'll see what's out there. But that's pretty much it. I will say, like the other, this wasn't a real council, push thing, but the youth in our town had been real interested in the ban on flavored tobacco, and that just keeps not passing. There's been a large statewide kind of youth effort around a ban on flavored tobacco, and it just doesn't go anywhere. Then, of course, they added the tax for the new nicotine patches. We just love taxing these things that are horrible. I'm sure they'll probably be giving those away, start giving those away at the youth summit. If I could, I wanted to mention too just one other item, and I know that Jeff Goodman is here, and I saw in the watching the meeting, which is great. But we have put forth, Jeff has applied to be the TriMet representative for the district that represents most of Clackamas County. I know that we have folks here outside of the transit district. But for those of us that are in the transit district, that I did circulate. It's really Happy Valley, Oregon City, Lake Oswego, Westland, Gladstone. I circulated that letter in support of Jeff, and some of you have been great in getting it to your council members. But if you're on this call, you're in the TriMet district, in our district, and have not seen that letter and want to help get it to members of your council, or if you're a community leader on this call who isn't in one of the cities but is in the district, please, if you give me your email in the chat, I'd be happy to get you that letter. Jeff has applied formally for the CED's meeting with TriMet. Excuse me, I have a peanut in my throat. But you guys know, Jeff, we served on the city council in Lake Oswego together. He is really dialed into government affairs in Clackamas County. You may not know him, but he watches all of our C4 meetings or C4 Metro meetings, highly engaged, and would make a great representative for TriMet. He brings a lot of financial expertise to the table, and when he was a member of the Lake Oswego City Council, really helped the city execute some challenging projects from a budget perspective. So we're putting Jeff's name forward. It'd be great to have all of your support. It'd be great to have someone on the TriMet board in our district, who's engaged with us and can carry our perspectives forward.
Thank you very much, Mayor Buck. Before I move on, I'll just say I have several department staff who would have been excited about several of the things that you mentioned. Our public health staff have been monitoring the ban on flavored tobacco and things like that for quite a while. That's a big priority at a staff level for them, and so that's something that we monitor often. And yes, you said it. Let's please let these housing policies mature at the planning level before we introduce new ones. Let them, prove that their policy and philosophy can become a practice before we add new things to it. So that's a talking point that the county has joined you in quite often. Okay, next up is Tualatin. Councilor Sacco, take it away.
Thank you. I did not work with Councilor Pratt to prepare anything. Apologies in advance. But for number one, our top priorities for 26, we're actually meeting next week to go over our priorities, which would influence 2 and 3. So nothing to report from Tualatin tonight.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is City of Gladstone, Mayor Milch.
Hi. Well, we have our first meeting next week. We have one new city councilor being sworn in. We have not focused on any specific legislative needs or reached out to our legislators about something as far as legislation goes. At the capital level, we got some funding for Metro for a bridge that would go over the Clackamas River connecting Gladstone to Oregon City. The responsibility for matching funds of that is solely on Gladstone. But we think the bridge has some regional benefit, and so we may be looking to some of our legislators for, again, if it's available, some small assistance in the capital funding of that project. As others have said already, we're not as far along on the housing needs strategy part of the work on that, but we always want clarification from the state on what the requirements would be. We're not going to have to double back and redo some things if they make changes, but we'd like some good guidance as we go forward on that. And similarly to what one of the other counselors said, guidance from the the ethics, Oregon State or Government Ethics Commission on some of those matters that were very confusing and frustrating to all the cities really in the last half of last year. So that's something where I hope we'll see some progress and some clarity.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next up is City of Happy Valley. I see Council President, right? Josh Callahan.
Yes, sir. We don't have any legislative bills that we intend on pursuing in the short session. Also, we're not going to be making any capital requests given kind of the outcome of our community center. We did get some funding from that and that didn't pass. So we're going to also hunker down a little bit. And then to Mayor Buck's question also, we were one of those cities. And if we haven't submitted our endorsement of Mr. Goodman yet, we will be submitting that. So we got everybody on the council to agree to that. So glad to help support that.
Thank you, Council President. I'm sure we all share that empathetic, heartfelt heartbreak when we saw that ballot measure go the way it went. I know there's a lot of staff time and elected time that goes into that, and the voice of the people get to speak into that too. But good work, and hopefully the good work doesn't sit on the shelf for too long. All right, Oregon City is next. Commissioner Marl.
Thank you, Trent. Good evening, everyone. The only legislative item that our commission has taken formal action that we would like to see is that if, in fact, the transportation tax is repealed at the governor's request, that the portions including ODOT accountability and the portions removing tolling language from statute be preserved and that it not be removed in its entirety.
Excellent. Good stuff there. Next up, I see the city of West Lynn, which is my city. Mayor Bialostowski, you have updates for us?
Hey, Trent. We haven't had, like some of my colleagues, a formal meeting on a legislative agenda. I think we'll be looking to watch the transportation package, and Commissioner Marl just had a great idea there that I hadn't thought of with regard to making sure that if there's a repeal, it preserves some of the things that are in there regarding tolling, the taking out of tolling. So we'll watch that. And some of you were at a recent meeting of the Locks Authority, and we might have if the Locks Authority has a bill, we might, I'm sure as a city, support their funding request, but I'm also sure that the purse strings will be pretty tight this session. So just looking to support where we can with the locks. Other than that, I don't think we haven't adopted a formal agenda for the session.
Excellent. Okie dokie. I think that's all of our jurisdictions as I look around the screen, but we have other members of C4. I don't want to lose an opportunity for y'all to speak into any other legislative goals that y'all may also be pursuing. Is there anyone else from the CPOs or Hamlets or Oak Lodge?
No,
Hi, thanks, Trent. We obviously aren't going to be doing an ask for any money during the short session, but our partners, our lobbying partners at Thorn Run will be working at both the federal level and planning for the next long legislative session. We did get a $3 million grant for our tertiary treatment at our treatment plant in the last session. And we just received bids this week on what we had estimated to be a $12 million project, and fortunately came in at $10.5 million. So we're very happy about that. Thanks.
And I would just reiterate some of the concerns already mentioned around transportation funding and the housing and land use changes.
Radio. All right. So before we transition, Paul Gornick, you just reminded me, because I recall that you had a federal earmark request as well, of some federal requests for the programs too. And for many of us have submitted earmark requests at the federal level. And the government shut down the budget stuff back in September and October. That's got pushed to January 30 of this year. But pay attention today. The House moved forward a bundle of 3 of the 8 appropriation bills. Those bills did include some appropriations, and so the expectation is that maybe, just maybe, Congress might start moving some of those. So if you have a congressionally directed spending, also known as earmark, also known as appropriation. If you're waiting to hear back on whether that's potentially moving forward, pay attention to some, maybe try not to watch all of it, some of the news coming out of DC, and maybe, just maybe, some of the dollars might be flowing back towards some of your jurisdictions if you have a request out there, which is optimistic news. Commissioner Savis, I saw you come off mute maybe to say a few things, and I'm going to start moving our legislative friends over if you did have something.
Yeah, go ahead and do that. Thank you, Trent. I did want to just add, I got my technical issues resolved, so I can actually um, do my work here. But I wanted to just add that yesterday, the Clackamas County Business Alliance hosted a few of our state legislators, and this issue that of the governor's announcement yesterday morning came up. And I will tell you that we messaged to them that if I believe it was Senator Meek that made the statement that we need to build trust or something along the trust issue. So following that, when we learned about this tolling thing, I made the comment that if they repeal the repeal on tolling, just kind of building on what Commissioner Morrow said, I don't think it's doing much for us as far as trust, or for the state legislature for that matter. Not that any individual legislator is to blame for this, but they do have the votes. They're going to need votes to make this happen, to repeal the repeal or repeal the portion of it. But I agree that we ought to hold some of those good things that are in there that have been completed and leave those harmless. And if they want to repeal everything else, but leave those two good things alone. We all fought hard, and if we need to do it again, we will, but I'm hoping we don't have to. It would be a shame to just roll the clock backwards 2 years and start from scratch. That'd be an awful shame. And I also want to add to the endorsement of Jeff Goodman for the open position for most of Clackamas County's seat on that's on TriMet. I've known Jeff a long time. He's been I've known him when he was on Lake Oswego City Councilor. He's been very active. He's got a high fiscal acumen, and considering the fiscal challenges that TriMet has, I think he'd be a perfect fit. So I will be bringing that forward. The Board of Commissioners uh, gets back together next week, next Tuesday, and I'll bring that up there and get that the endorsement from our commission as well. So with that, next up, Trent, I'll turn it over to you to introduce our legislators.
Thank you very much. And really, I have the privilege of introducing some legislative staff. And as I mentioned, there's a few other meetings that are catching the priority level of our elected officials. But as you know, as you all have city managers and staff support in different places, the staff sometimes are the people who are moving the building and keeping the policies going forward. And so we have four here from our elected offices tonight, and some others may join us later today as the meeting goes on. But Daniel and Daniel, two Daniels, Eli and Sarah, if you would take a moment to introduce yourselves, and then I'm going to give you three questions that maybe your office can give us some insight on from Salem.
I'm going to go ahead and start. Hey, everyone, Daniel Mulkey. I'm Representative Vanessa Hartman's Chief of Staff. Good to see you all. And I'll pass it over to the other Daniel.
Hi there. I'm Daniel Browsey. I'm Rep. Ricky Smith's LA, and glad to be with you. I guess I'll call on Eli.
Yeah, I'll jump in. Hi, everybody. I'm Eli, Representative Daniel Wynn's Legislative Director. And Sarah, I think that leaves you.
Hello, Sarah. Oh, maybe not the Sarah I was expecting. You want me to? All right, Sarah, your mute is struggling, and I'm gonna.
Sorry, you can put me back. You can put me back to attendee. I don't know
Gotcha. Sorry about that. I
what
thought
the
you were a
difference was
different
that.
Sarah.
So
My apologies.
that's okay.
Yeah, we'll get you back over there. That's okay. All right, and Mayor Gamba has been able to show up here just in time for that. Mayor Gamba, my C4 brain, Representative Gamba. Okie dokie. Hi, Representative Gamba. Glad you can make it. Did he disappear?
No, he's there, but he's muted and his screen is off.
Okie dokie. We'll keep moving. So maybe he'll have a chance to come back in. And Jamie, if you can help us with that too, please. Alrighty. So Daniel and Eli, while we have you here, the three questions I'm going to ask you, and you can take turns doing one at a time here, but just so you can maybe prepare your answers. The first question we want to know is, what are your priority bills? Walking into the session, every legislator gets two bills. What are your expectations around the budget challenges that the state has, and how is your office wanting to approach those discussions? And then the third question that we had teed up for tonight is, how can we help you ensure that local services retain the funding necessary to keep those services alive? And I'm confident that everyone in this room wants to know your reaction to the transportation stuff and a few other things that are going on. I was not planning on asking you those questions, and bless your heart, y'all are staff, and so I wouldn't put that pressure on you or not. That's more of the legislator question in particular, but at a high level, I know that that's going to be a key issue that this group is going to be very mindful of. But let's stick to those top three for now, and as we get more, we can certainly talk to those folks about it.
I'm happy to start if that's okay with the other two of you. And I'm not going to stick to those three, Trent. I'm going to start with tolling. I'm going to start with transportation because I feel like knowing Clackamas, that's always top of mind. It's always the biggest stressor for all of us. I will say that is a top priority for us to ensure that tolls are not in the transportation conversation, making sure that we keep the tolling or language removal and the ODOT accountability provisions in statute. I will say I haven't heard of anybody in the administration, in the Kotek administration, that's talked about tolling. I've only seen people say, "Oh, they're going to repeal it, therefore they're going to repeal the repeal of tolling." I have not seen any indication from the governor that that's the case. In fact, I've seen the opposite. And I'll encourage you all to look at her campaign. I'll say only time I'm going to do that. Look at her campaign Facebook, the 24th of December, Christmas Eve. Look at her posts because she is both on Facebook and Instagram campaigning on having ended tolls. So I think we made it loud and clear, made it known to her that tolling is not a winning message. It is not something that most Oregonians support, certainly not something that Clackamas supports, and she needs Clackamas to win that, to keep her seat, basically. So saying that, the other big thing that's on everybody's radar right now is the federal disconnect. So HR 1 federally, there are a lot of tax cuts in that bill that are going to have humongous effects. You're already seeing some of the effects locally. On the state level, I've heard anywhere from $300 to $700 million in terms of a deficit that we're having. And so a lot of the conversations are around where do we disconnect? Where do we not do on the state level what the federal HR 1 is doing in terms of tax cuts? We are trying to make sure that whatever that disconnect looks like, it's going to be fair. We want to make sure, overtime, tipped wages are not taxed. Those are some of the provisions in there. But looking at some other unfair tax loopholes, what can we do to try to make sure that our tax structure is fair and that we cannot just completely destroy so many of the programs that our state is functioning. And so that's part of it too, is trying to protect our key services, looking at healthcare, childcare, education, child welfare. Rep Hartman is the chair of the Early Childhood Human Services Committee. And so a lot of these things, SNAP benefits, child welfare, child protective services, to people with disabilities, older Oregonians, making sure that they're not going to just be on the streets because we're not funding the programs that allow them to be housed and live honestly. So within that, a lot of the work that I've been doing is around reforming child welfare, making sure that we're using our resources as effectively as possible, aligning with national best practices while not increasing the amount of money. So I think there's a good amount of work. I'm hoping we're going to be able to really help make child welfare a bit more efficient, make sure that the kids that are in the most danger are going to get the resources they need. So that's one thing. The other big priority for her is closing, sort of related to the tax issues, closing the mortgage interest deduction for vacation homes. That's a deduction that people can take on their vacation homes currently. That's disproportionately a benefit for wealthier people that then leave these vacation homes empty for the most part of the year. When we're in a housing crisis, that doesn't seem to be the best use of our breaks tax resources. So we want to take that money, instead of just backfilling this, $300 to $700 million deficit, redirect that money towards home ownership. And so down payment assistance. I mean, I don't know if any of you have tried to buy a home recently. Prices are just skyrocketing. And so not only working families, but a lot of middle class families are really struggling to be able to afford their first homes. This money would be able to help upwards of $9 million a year towards supporting families buy their first homes. Last thing I'll touch on, second to last, because I want to go back to something Mayor Buck said as well. Her second bill, because we have committee bills and we have personal bills, her second personal bill is designating March 4th as HPV Awareness Day. As many of you might know, our department has been undergoing cervical cancer treatment for the past few months. So something that she decided to go very public about, sort of in seeing what happened with the late Representative Baldwin, and how she didn't want to be very public about it for a long time. Her department wanted to really use this as an opportunity to show people, teach people a little bit about what it looks like, but also really to encourage people to get screened for cervical cancer. HPV, is the main cause of cervical cancer. A lot of people in her generation, people in their mid 30s to mid 40s, did not receive HPV vaccines, and that seems to be one of the leading preventative measures that you can take to not get cervical cancer. And so that's one thing. And then I want to go back to Mayor Buck's comment on the flavored tobacco ban. I, in my personal capacity, lobbied against that, not because I think vapes are great. I don't. It was really because it didn't have any exemptions for hookah lounges. I'm of Middle Eastern descent, and hookah is a big thing for the Middle Eastern community. And so I explained to some of the youth counselors from Oregon City, that was the opposition I had, and the American Cancer Society did not. They didn't care. They said we don't care if that's a cultural practice. We don't care if that's Middle Eastern people don't drink as much alcohol. They smoke tobacco and they smoke hookah in particular. We don't care that you've been doing it for 500 years or more. We still want to ban it. We don't want to have an exemption. And so that's where I push against it. I still don't think it's going to have any chance, just given like I was saying, the revenue shortfall of $300 to $700 million to have just the fiscal impact even without the hookah seems very difficult. But I agree, Mayor Buck. I tried to get them to carve out hookah, and they very staunchly refused. So happy to take any questions. In terms of, I guess the last thing I didn't address was how you guys can support us. Was the question I want to say? I think, yeah, right, Trent.
Yeah, how can this group, what can they provide to help you sort of protect the services that are on the chopping block through state agencies?
I think the more that we can just talk through, if there's something where we're seeing cuts, we will try to talk to you. We'll try to get agency to talk to you guys as well, to see where can there be some sharing of resources. Where can we try to get public-private partnerships to backfill some of these things? We're looking at some humongous cuts, and so it's hard now when we're not actually, we're not sure what those cuts are going to be, and what the revenue, this disconnect bill is going to have, how much is going to come from that. So what the ending deficit is going to be. It's hard to know what the cuts will be, but I think the more that you guys can communicate what are top priorities for you all in terms of essential services, really, that's what we're looking at with such a huge budget deficit. What are essential services, and how can we try to coordinate our offices, or we have connections with state agencies. How can we help you guys communicate with state agencies to protect those services? Happy to take any questions as well.
Any questions for Daniel at Representative Hartman's office? No, going once, going twice.
Come on, someone's got to have something.
Carve out the hookah. I saw the comment. We got some support there, it looks like.
All right, Mayor Kaiser, you have your hand up.
I'd like to thank Representative Hartman and you for the bold stand you took against the gas tax and all of that last year. I think Representative Hartman and your group were probably the only elected listening to the Clackamas County voters, and I really appreciated the bold move that you guys made.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. I'll pass it along to Rep. Hartman. Thank you.
I want to say, Daniel, being that you're the first, and those listening will hear this as well. I'll just say it once, and that is that in the development of HB 2025, which never came to be, we had lobbied hard for some language to get a conversation about transit and some of the transit challenges. And because that bill never passed, that language never carried on, and we couldn't get it into the short bill 3991. But at a meeting here 3 months ago, Representative McLean shared her commitment to have that conversation regardless. There's not being in the bill. So I'm hoping that, again, it's not a money request. It's simply a conversation request to deal with the transit, and based on what we're learning about TriMet and some of the other transit agencies, not all, just some, that we need some work. Work needs to be done on this, and I'm hoping we can gather some attention and get that conversation going.
I appreciate that, Commissioner Savas. I will say, if it's related to the STIF, changing that from where people live to where they work to where they live, I know that Rep. Hartman has been very supportive of that change and has mentioned it in almost every transportation conversation I've been a part of. So I think you have an ally in us in terms of if that's the push to get that happening.
Great, thank you, and wish her the best through these difficult times.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Beatty. Appreciate that as well.
Right, I think our next on that list there is Daniel Brass, and I see that we have, again, Representative Gamba is here, and Senator Neron Mislin will try to get you in the queue over here too, so you have a chance to participate as well. But we'll do Daniel, and then of course we have Eli, and then our two representatives who are able to make it. Well, Representative and Senator. So, Daniel.
Thank you, Trent. So I guess I'll just start off with the first one regarding ODOT funding. I'm really hesitant to make any statement on that. I think I'm a rank lower than any other staff here. I'm just in LA. But I do know that when I was attending the Clackamas County Business Council meeting with the representative, that she was very concerned about that, especially when the news that came through on the governor's intentions. So just know I can't really say anything on that right now, but we're concerned about that. Regarding Rep. Ricky Smith's main goals this session, she's got two bills coming that she's hoping to bring forward. The first one is one that's bringing current federal overtime and minimum wage requirements for domestic healthcare workers from the federal level and then codifying them in the state level. This is in response to some proposed federal rule changes, and it's just making sure that those stay in at Oregon state level. So there's no big change there. It's just bringing protections from the federal level down into the state level. Regarding her second priority this session, she's hoping to when it comes to the federal scholarship tax credit, should Governor Kotek opt into said tax credit, that there be a better way to track where are federal dollars going or where are state dollars going in terms of tax credits for private education. So she's just hoping to bring some state level oversight into that and make sure that where public money is being spent, that we know what it's being spent on. And lastly, how can local leaders like you all support us? The big thing I would say from our level is come talk to us. I'm managing the representative schedule every day. I know that she's very much willing to meet with many local leaders and would love to chat. So if you ever want to get on her schedule, just shoot me an email or shoot the office an email, shoot me an email, or ask sometime in this meeting. And we would love to hear from you.
Excellent. Thank you, Daniel. Any questions for Daniel in the office of Representative Sue Ricky Smith? Going once, going twice. All right. Eli, you're next up. Thanks for coming. Representative Daniel Wynn's office today.
Yeah, you stole my joke. I was gonna say I'm not a Daniel, but I do work for a Daniel.
There it is.
So hi everybody. I work for Representative Daniel Wynn. He is, as many of you know, the jobs in the economy guy, and so all of his bills, both personal and committee bills, sort of represents and reflects the economic reality that we're facing. First, for personal bills, we're bringing back fish and chips. This is the Fostering Innovation Strength at Home and Chips Act, which expands on some of the incentive programs for advanced manufacturing specific to semiconductors and expands onto those. The other targeted industries that we have here in Oregon, these are industries that economic data shows we have a competitive advantage over other states, things like outdoor gear and apparel, obviously with the big Nike, Adidas, and Columbia footprint that we have here in the States, bioscience and bioengineering, metals and advanced machinery, other than semiconductors, things like solar panels to coatings for windows that help make things more efficient. There's four others that I'm forgetting, but those are the targeted industries that we want to help spur more manufacturing in in the state that helps keep good family wage jobs, keeps income taxes coming in, and helps us at all levels of government with local funding. The next thing that we're bringing back is the Senator Aaron Woods Commission on Artificial Intelligence. This is named after the late Senator Aaron Woods. And as those of you that were at the Portland Metro Chamber events or the statewide business summit events, AI is really the core of what is keeping the real economy afloat right now, from the stock market to investments. It's also percolating into everything from our classrooms to, some legislators' floor speeches to, advertising on television. And so it's already popping up everywhere in our lives. And what this commission will do is we'll bring together experts from a variety of fields, a variety of professions, the labor community, data experts, privacy experts, and really figure out a way for us as a state to craft policy that is smart, helps foster innovation, and doesn't, create so many strangulations that AI companies and tech companies can't innovate, while also protecting Oregonians, protecting their data, making sure that we're not doing some really terrible things with AI. We're hearing stories about, some grocery stores looking at using dynamic pricing models where an AI machine will take a look at who's coming in the doors and then automatically change prices based off of what they think people can pay. So some really alarming changes like that we want to help, reduce. Um, and then in terms of committee bills, I'll just give a quick preview. One of them is basically directing Business Oregon, which oversees over 90 different grants and programs across three major divisions, to take a hard look at what they're offering, and come to the 27-29 budgeting session with some recommendations on consolidating programs, cutting programs that no longer serve their purpose, expanding programs which, there's more demand and need for than we're able to serve, and, potentially separating certain functions of their agencies so that they can get back to the core root of economic development and business development here across the states. The next one is economic resilience strategy, looking at specifically three areas of trade, procurement, and business retention, and how we can do better as a state and help make our regulatory framework adapt to the needs of businesses so that folks aren't leaving for Arizona or New York or Colorado, and that they're able to really stay and help grow their businesses here. And finally, we're gonna try to get some pilot projects for industrial symbiosis across the state. These are things that, the wastewater from the local gummy factory might be able to provide the additive that your water treatment plant requires for another purpose, thereby reducing, the private sector's uh, bill to get that special, chemical out of that water, and the local, water treatment plants bills, in terms of now they've already got a supply of this. They don't have to go in and pay for, a special chemical to come in and treat it. Things like that. And so those are the bills. Trent, help me. I'm forgetting the other questions.
How is your office approaching the budget cuts that have been sort of advertised, so to speak? And then how can we help you defend county and city services that may be a recipient of some of those hard choices?
Yes, thank you. I mean, I think we've been using the pie metaphor a lot, whether that's, housing investments, education, the cost of healthcare, transportation. We're always fighting for a bigger and bigger slice of the same amount of pie, essentially when we're coming to the budget. And so we really see economic development as a way for us to grow the state's pie. When Oregon's businesses and workers are doing well, the state's doing well because we have more income taxes revenue coming in that we can then invest in housing, education, healthcare, transportation. And so that's the drumbeat that we are really trying to help folks in the building understand. We're not asking people to choose between investing in housing or investing in the state school funds or economic development. We're trying to help them realize that for every dollar that we're putting towards economic development and putting into the economy, we're getting more back. Depending on the program, it's anywhere from $3 to $14 that we're spearheading. And so I think this also ties into the way that you can help us help folks understand that it's going to hurt, it's going to be painful, even if we dedicate every dollar to backfilling federal dollars that no longer exist in the state budget. It will hurt less next biennium if we invest in the economy now, if we invest in businesses now that help retain more workers, help retain more income coming into the state's revenue, and then, of course, growing it every year after year. The economy is really at an inflection point. We've got, I'm sure many of you have seen the John Topegna webinar where we have a real choice ahead of us. Choose deliberate growth, meaning, more people, more jobs, more revenue all around, or we can continue to deal with the pains of not only stagnation, but potentially loss of growth or reducing where we're at. So that's how you can help folks realize it'll hurt less down the line when we help invest in Oregon businesses and workers, um, all spending money in the state, in the counties, in the cities, and yeah, that's where I'll end it.
Excellent, Eli. That's a lot going on. I think that is probably music to everyone's ears in this room that y'all are so heavily focused on economic growth. Um, I love your pie metaphor. It's my favorite metaphor. It's delicious. Pecan and pumpkin for me, please. Key lime also is in there. But any pie metaphors moving forward, great. Economic growth, also good. Any questions for the Office of Representative Daniel Wynn through Eli? Going once, going twice. All right, we had Representative Gamba. I don't see his square anymore, but we still do have Senator Neron Mislin. Uh, Senator, thanks for joining us this evening. And I know that you had been called elsewhere and that there's a lot going on tonight. So thanks for working hard on a busy early 2026. A lot going on. The prompt for our legislative offices tonight are, what are you working on? What are your two bills? How are you wanting to approach these hard budget conversations that we're expecting? And how can we help you protect those services that we all provide through your office?
Yeah, thanks, Trent. Thanks everybody for having the meeting tonight. And sorry, I've had to come in and out for other things. In terms of my two bills, I'll just try to go in order of the questions. I am really focused on affordability for Oregonians and figuring out how we can have kind of a forward-thinking future vision. So really looking at the virtual power plants as one bill and hunger-free schools as another. So in terms of virtual power plants, this is something that we know will help us address the transmission capacity issues. We're hearing more and more about if we do nothing, we're going to have rolling blackouts because of the increased energy consumption and the limitations of our current system. So if we are able to switch more communities into virtual power plants. Essentially, the neighborhoods become the grid, your solar power, your solar panels, your smart thermostats, your EV chargers, your residential battery storage become part of a virtual grid. It's something that PGE is piloting very successfully. We know it can reduce rolling blackouts. We know it's necessary. It does incentivize climate-friendly solutions. And so we'll be looking at that. Another word for it is distributed power. We'll be looking at ways that we can move forward more aggressively with this solution for Oregon. Essentially, we won't have to build as many physical power plants if we're creating the virtual power plants with existing infrastructure. And then the hunger-free schools work, we have for years, since I came into the legislature and passed the Student Success Act, been pushing closer and closer to becoming a universal school meals state. This is a very strong bipartisan supported concept where we would be addressing chronic absenteeism, learning outcomes, making sure that we are helping students thrive, reducing stigma, and essentially ensuring that students are learning with a full belly and nutrition. And so we're very, very close. We just have about 21 more schools to go before we close that gap and become a universal school meal state. So I'm looking at the next steps that we can take to ensure that all Oregon students have access to meals and full bellies when they're learning. In terms of some of the other topics that I've heard you all come up with, so I'm inserting a question you didn't ask, Trent. The transportation's on Clackamas County's mind. I hope you know that I've been defending against really poorly constructed tolling concepts that have come forward, and we've successfully made sure that Clackamas County is not the guinea pig for some of these ideas. I did introduce a stiff bill as well last session in partnership with the late Senator Woods. House Bill 2795, for various reasons, didn't move forward, but it was one of our concepts that we put forward to address the stiff conversation. So I'm really interested in hearing other ideas and making sure that we have that conversation. Coalition will be needed to push that forward. And I just really want to invite partnership. This would be a 2027 bill if I'm to do it, but I'm happy to partner with others if there is a legislator pushing on that this session. In terms of transit funding, we know how important it is, but we also know how important the 50-30-20 breakdown is. So there are certain things that I will continue to be a stick in the mud, a fighter for, and really make sure that we are also addressing kind of a future-ready transportation mindset. I really believe in seismic resiliency in that Boone Bridge and continue to advocate for it as one of the top projects for the state. We know the Rose Corridor, 217 and Abernathy were very important, but so is that Boone Bridge. Our I-5 bridge should not be something that Clackamas County alone pays for. It is a regional and statewide and frankly West Coast piece of infrastructure and benefits. So we need to make sure that Oregon gets ready for federal funding. And that is where we are positioning ourselves in partnership with the city of Wilsonville, with our congresswoman, and we will continue to invite partnership from you all as well as we advocate for that piece of infrastructure investment. I will continue, of course, to advocate for the Recovery Campus. We have been really successful in Clackamas County asks in the past with our courthouse construction, with the different policies that you all have pushed for, and the Recovery Campus is one that I don't want to lose any momentum on. So I do see it as an investment in the care that Oregonians need. In terms of the revenue issues, the budget issues, actually getting back to your questions, Trent, sorry. The things that I am doing, I am the chair of the Natural Resources Ways and Means co-chair of the subcommittee, and we've just had to, all of our agencies have just gone through their exercise of 2.5 and 5% cuts exercise. Very painful to look at the possibilities. I'm hoping we don't have to go there, and some of the things we can do are strategic for Oregon, disconnecting strategically from parts of HR 1 so that we can mitigate some of the harm of that particular piece of legislation that directly affects our ability to pay for county services and the things that you all care about on the local level. So we'll really try to look at the ways that we can continue to maintain and mitigate harm. Um, Again, my bills are really focused on affordability and making sure that we have an economic uplift. I appreciate the things that Eli highlighted that Representative Wynn is focused on as part of the delegation to learn more about, and with Representative Gamba, who's joined us again, to learn more about industrial symbiosis. That is a conversation that many of us want to have as a very strategic look forward at our economic future. I also want to make sure that we hold education harmless. Childcare needs to be something that we see as infrastructure for our economy, and make sure that we tap into the reserves and rainy day funds as necessary. It's very hard for the education system to change their budget mid-biennium. So we want to make sure that we get them through this biennium and look at those ways that we can stabilize our workforce, ensure economic stability. And I'll just end with my emphasis on community safety right now, which is impacted very deeply on many different levels. And right now, a lot of people in our communities are nervous, fearful, hurting, staying home, and really unsure of the community safety that we thought we had. So I really am listening to a lot of community members who are telling me their lived experiences right now. Thank you.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Senator, for all those comments, for some of those key points that are near and dear to the hearts of our C4 members here. Any questions for Senator Neron Mislin here before we go to our next speaker? All right, got off easy. All right, last but not least, because this is a C4 alumni, is Representative Mark Gamba.
Hey everyone, it's fun to be back in this meeting. So I was able to catch, I think, the three questions. It was, what are our two bills? What are we going to do, or what do we need you to do to help us protect local funding in this cuts budget? And then what was the third?
How are you approaching the cuts budget conversation? And of course, the question that I didn't ask that everyone's answering anyway is, how are you reacting to the governor's announcement about the transportation package?
Yeah, I'll start with that because I sit on both the House Transportation Committee and I'm now the co-chair of the Joint Transportation Oversight Committee. I think she kind of didn't have a choice. The result of the ballot measure was that the taxing was going to be halted until after the election and then some. So the whole point of that bill was a Band-Aid. It was a Band-Aid meant to keep ODOT employees employed. It was meant to keep the transit agencies functioning for a year until we could get back in session and or 2 years and pass a full transportation package. So given that the likelihood was that it was going to fail anyway, there was no point in hanging on to it. So I think I've been involved in several conversations with the governor's team and others about how we keep the wheels on until we can come back with another revenue package next year in 27. And there's a number of ideas, but we are going to end up with some layoffs. We've already had a fair number of people quit because their jobs are insecure. So the likelihood of decreased maintenance, decreased snow plowing, decreased all the things we need is high. Which segues nicely into one of my two bills. And I want to back up a little bit and talk about a little bit of history. Oregon was the first state to create a gas tax, and we did it in order to have roads that weren't mud. And since then, if my reading of history is correct, we have never kept up with inflation. We certainly haven't kept up with inflation for the last 40 years. We occasionally raise the gas tax, some increment, but it has never in any of those times kept up with inflation. And you all know, people who run cities, people who run counties, that everything you do, whether it's laying pipes for your sewer and water, building libraries, whatever it is you do, the costs for those things are going up year over year. And in reality, they're going up faster than groceries, for example. Construction costs have been increasing 15% year over year since about 2010. So we have to address that. We can't continue to hope to have a system that is kept in the kind of condition we expect it to be kept in for free. And at the current rate, the money that ODOT has, there are bridges in this state they will not touch for 900 years. No bridge ever designed by man is designed to last 900 years. 150 would be a pretty long span for a bridge. So that gives you some sense of how far behind we are on funding mechanisms for our transportation system. So what I'm doing is what I hope to be a first step in creating a new system. We all know that part of the Band-Aid bill and part of 2025 bill was to create a road user charge to collect funds from the EVs and plug-in hybrids through a per mile charge. That's going away, obviously, with this bill going down. But it's going to come back because we need to be able to charge those people to utilize our system. And the gas tax, as I pointed out, has not even kept up with inflation. So at some point in the future, we will all be working under the road user charge. So my bill takes the very first step in that conversation. And what it tries to do is set up a process where ODOT every 2 years will, working with cities and counties, come up with a empirical data set of what do we want our system to look like? What is the average pavement index we want on our interstates? What is it on our non-interstate highways? What is it on our collectors and our arterials? All the way down the line. What is the cadence that we should be striping roads? What is the cadence we should be replacing bridges? And then determine, okay, if that's what we all agree to, if that's the system that we all can live with, then what does that cost a year to do? And then the second piece of data that they are required, if this bill passes, to produce is how many miles are Oregonians driving a year? Then it's a very simple math problem after that. Divide one by the other and you know what we should pay per mile in order to maintain our system. In a perfect world, that then becomes the way we fund our maintenance and preservation, period. Not funding new shiny things, simply the utility of keeping our system functioning. The new shiny things, I would propose we utilize the system that was proposed in HB 2025, which was the privilege tax on new and used vehicles, which raises a significant amount of money. If that's what we use, whether we want an extra lane mile on 205 or we want to add a lane across the Boom Bridge or fix Powell Boulevard so it stops killing people, all of those things, safe routes to school, all the new shiny things would come out of that, so that forevermore maintenance and preservation is preserved and it's indexed to reality. And new shiny things are things we all get to decide. We want this other new shiny thing. Okay, what are we willing to pay? What are we willing to spend in a privilege tax to do that? Because the transportation system is a very, very expensive piece of infrastructure that we have built over a century. We cannot allow it to degrade to the point. I mean, those of you who are mayors, you know damn good and well that if you allow a road to degrade to the point where a 2-inch pavement lay is not going to solve the problem, and you have to rebuild that road, it's 15 times more expensive than laying down 2 inches of pavement. 15 times more expensive. So think about that when you're thinking about our entire system. We can't allow it to degrade, and we have been doing so for several decades. So that's one of my bills. The second bill is called the Revenue Forecast Modernization Act, and it addresses one of the issues we have in this state, which is that we have something called the kicker. And contrary to how it's portrayed, the way the kicker works is that the state's economist is meant to guess. It's an educated guess, it's a calculated guess, but they're meant to guess what our income is going to be 2 years hence. And if they are off by more than 2%, the amount above that kicks. 2 years ago, it kicked $5.6 billion. I will point out that that very same year, we bonded $1 billion for our portion of the interstate bridge, which means over time, as you well know, bonds are not free money. We will pay $1.5 billion at least for that bridge. Had the kicker not been in place, or had it been more accurate, we could have written a check for $1 billion and saved $500 million. This year, in a cuts budget year, in a year where you're concerned about funds to programs that are important to you, in a year when we're concerned about funds for schools, funds for keeping people housed, funds for keeping people getting their mental health care, all of these critical things, it's a cuts budget year. We're going to have to be picking and choosing our favorite children. We are also kicking $1.4 billion. So $1.4 billion is going back to the richest Oregonians, predominantly. We all get a little bit, but most of that goes back to the richest Oregonians. And your budgets get cut for things you care about. Does that make sense? So this bill creates a different system that the economist is to use to report to the legislature a kicker number and to report to the legislature a second number, which is their worst case scenario. Because after they've done all their work and all their study and all their calculations, they don't arrive at a number, they arrive at a range. They can tell you with some confidence, we don't think it'll be more than X and we don't think it'll be less than Y. And they always give us the kicker number as one that's pretty close to that Y end of that axis, to the low end, so that we don't over budget and have to claw money back. And therefore we almost always kick. So this new system requires them to give us the high number as the official kicker number, the low number to budget to. The delta in the middle can be used for a number of things. Reducing debt, avoiding debt. So the interstate bridge bond is a good example. If we'd had a delta in there that year, we could have just written a check. Buying down PERS obligations, that's reducing debt. So there's a number of ways it can be used, and it can be used for emergencies. So those are the three main ways that that money will be able to be used. As to the question of the budget generally, as I've said, it's a cuts budget year, and something is going to get cut. And I guarantee you there is somebody somewhere that cares very, very much about every single one of those things. Every single one. We don't have a lot of fluff in the state budget. So, no promises. I think we're going to have to do a lot of soul searching as we think about what gets cut and what doesn't get cut this year. But if we can get this bill passed, maybe in 2 years from now, we won't have as big of a cuts budget because we'll have protected all of the revenue that our state taxes have collected. And then, what was your, I covered all three, didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah. Help us help you, right? And that's really the third question there. And that's a tough one.
The thing that we need to be doing, and we passed, the House passed it in the last session. We passed the bill that disconnected us completely from the federal budget, from the federal tax system. The Senate failed to pass it. So we are now in a position where we are looking at large cuts, not as bad as we thought. We thought it was going to be close to $1 billion, but it's still going to be big. So to the degree that we can rally the troops to disconnect as much as possible from that federal bill, that's going to help. Sorry.
Right. Well, thanks for going into the details of that. You're reminding me how much I appreciate not being a bill writer on the legislative council team, but that group of people is the unsung hero of our lawmaking group as they try to interpret your ideas and turn them into actual laws that get to be, put to your different chambers. Any questions for Representative Gamba before we close up here?
Yeah. I have one. And first of all, I want to say thank you to all of our legislators and our legislative staff that have spoken here tonight. And to that end, because the two unique committees that you sit on, Representative Gamba on transportation and the comments regarding the governor's suggestion of referral of the bill, I want to point out three components of HB 3991 that are law today. One of them you spoke to, and somewhat, I think, touched on another. So today, that road user charge for electric vehicles is now law and in place. So that's something that's there today. Mission accomplished. We did a lot of work on that. We've been asking for that. Second, the accountability measures for this transportation package are really important. We've accomplished that. I think we ought to be holding on to that. And of course, the tolling, the repeal of this tolling package that would have isolated or basically used Clackamas County as a guinea pig, if you will, amongst other all things. That is a project that ran away with itself, and some of us here in this room know in great detail because we sat on a number of committees, so we know in great detail how that really ran away from itself. I'm hoping, and we mentioned this yesterday at the CCBA, but I just want to just share that I think a number of us really want to make sure that if there is a repeal or an ask of a repeal, that it's literally limited to what the referral was, and that was the gas tax increase, the vehicle registration fees, the vehicle title fees, and the payroll tax. To refer what is already law today, okay, to repeal that, I think would really erode away a lot of trust and lose a lot of momentum. We would lose a year or two of momentum of building the road user charge program, getting the accountability measures in place, and all the fret that reintroducing tolling or repealing the repeal, I think would not be good policy, in my opinion. Your thoughts, Representative Gamba?
There's a lot there. You and I sat in the testimony seats during 2017, and both of us very clearly and loudly opposed tolling individual interstates, and they didn't listen. Part of the reason, Paul, that they didn't listen is they needed a way to pay for this stuff. And they're desperate. As I keep pounding the table, we have not kept up with inflation just for maintenance and preservation, let alone when we want shiny new things. There is no money for it. There has to be a revenue source. So, that is why that ended up. I thought it was a bad idea at the time. I still think it's a bad idea the way they rolled it out. I don't believe that even if the entire bill is reversed, that there's any concern that tolling is going to come back. I think the state has heard Clackamas loud and clear. Tolling is not on the table. So whatever bill we pass in 27 would include that. I think the reason that the entire bill is being considered to be reversed rather than just the parts that were on the ballot measure is that, as you well know, when you're trying to pull together complicated packages, you have a lot of interests, varied interests, coming at things from very different directions. if some of those interests got everything they wanted out of the Band-Aid bill, they have no reason to come back to the table in 27 to do the work of actually passing a new measure. That's the political reason, not to just to break it up into pieces. I think there's some practical reasons too. As you pointed out, it establishes a RUC. But what does it tie the RUC's funding amount to? It ties it to the gas tax. Well, we're changing the gas tax. And in my opinion, tying the system that we hope to be our new system to a system that is underfunded, not indexed to reality, and we hope to make go away, doesn't seem like a very smart idea. It's why I'm running the bill I'm running. So I think it makes more sense to start fresh and create a RUC that makes sense from the get-go if that is going to be our new form of revenue from the state. Did I cover all the things you touched on?
Yeah, pretty much. I didn't go into the weight mile issue for trucks, which is another solution that's long overdue. I'm not going to beat up on that. I want to make it perfectly clear. I'm not advocating for a repeal of the bill. However, I'm definitely inclined, personally, not speaking for the commission or anyone in this room, I'm personally inclined to fight a repeal of those existing good things that are in the package. That's where I'm here today. Maybe I can be talked out of that, but personally, I'm inclined to resist that in any way I can. But we'll see.
I'm happy to sit down with you.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah,
two other
we're overdue for a coffee. So because we live in
Yeah.
the same neighborhood, we got to get together here pretty soon.
Yeah.
Representative Gamma. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Mayor
I
Buck.
think Mayor Buck is the next hand up.
Yeah, Mayor Buck's
Hey,
next.
thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Representative Gamba, and everyone. Great to hear from you all. I had one thing in particular, Representative Gamba, to you. Just wanted to, express support for moving towards the RUC. I think it's a great idea. Also, I mean, and really understanding the full capital needs, the maintenance needs of the roadways throughout the state. Of course, great idea. I think we all, we all do that locally. We have our CIPs. The thing is, of course, the limiting factor isn't really the the cost, right? I mean, it's what people can reasonably pay. There'll never be enough money to. I mean, what condition do people want the roads at? They want the 70 PCI. Can we all get to 70 PCI? No, not unless you're like Hillsborough that just built brand new streets. It's impossible. No one will pay, right? So it has to be a little more nuanced, right? Than just, well, here's what it takes to get to a great PCI. And
that's what I'm saying. We all get to decide what is the PCI that we're willing to tolerate on our interstates, on our non-interstate highways, on our collectors, on our arterials. And then, because otherwise it's fantasy, right? You're saying, okay, please maintain the system as well as you can for nothing. I can tell you how
they
well
need
they
some
can
money,
maintain the system
exactly.
for nothing.
But it's kind of got to be balanced between like you said, I mean, of course, the types of roadways, but the volume of traffic that roadway receives, and then of course the other repairs and things, bridges that are needed along the way. Because I just feel like the number will always be more than people can afford. What they want is always more than what we can pay for. I mean, it just seems like that's always the unfortunate case, but we have to pay for something. We can't let the roads all deteriorate. And I think moving towards the RUC is a good way of doing it. But think like the other element of all this, and at least like just from my perspective, what I hear in this whole conversation around transportation funding, I don't hear anyone saying like, raising the gas tax. Well, that's crazy. We have, we have so much money in this, we don't even know what to do with it. Like, what do we need more money for? No, what we have these issues, especially around transportation, where there is just no trust in the use of the dollars. And here in the midst of this whole conversation, we have this whole mess with the IBR. And the fact that these large mega projects that we all have to pay for are just ballooning beyond, belief. And does not seem to be any accountability. And when you hear the governor and her office putting out these statements, it really does not bode well for any kind of public trust. I mean, who's going to believe this whole, well, they didn't have the numbers because they were preliminary numbers. It's like, yeah, no kidding. Everyone understands how these projects work. The numbers are preliminary as you go through, time and time again. And just this the whole nature of the IBR. I mean, they don't even get me started on that. That I mean, as long as I've been an elected official, we've been talking about this project, and they still don't even know the design of the bridge. I mean, it's like the craziest thing ever. So I can see how some Oregonians are like, we do not trust you with more money because you cannot spend the money that we've given you appropriately. And it's not just transportation, then, it goes into everything else, education and the like. So I will say, like, we all know, I mean, all of us here, like, this is Clackamas people, we are a politically diverse, group of people. And even within our own cities and our city councils, we're all, pretty diverse politically. And I think, the cutest thing I see on social media is when the dogs and the cats are playing together, you think the dogs and the cats are arch enemies, but they're really not. They actually can love each other. And if we could see a little more of the dog and the cat coming out of Salem, I think we would all really appreciate that, because that is the reality that we all have to face in our communities. And the transparency, like we talk about public safety, yes, like physical public safety, that, is an issue right now. And a lot of people are concerned about their physical safety. But beyond that, I think when people feel safe in their community, they know that they can trust their elected leaders, that there is transparency and meaningful engagement in the public process. And the process, I would invite you, like in Salem, like this whole, I mean, we got the OGC breathing down our necks locally, where we are like scared to death to send a text message to a colleague. And there is zero transparency coming out of how decisions are made at the legislative level. You all
I
go
couldn't
into
agree with you
pockets,
more.
and I know you feel that way, and it would be great to see some change down there. This caucus system, making the decisions behind closed doors, the pressure from the moneyed interest, including, whether it's business interest, whether it's union interest, it is a bunch of nonsense. And we feel, as other elected officials, I don't want to speak for everyone, but we've had these conversations. Like, we feel like it's two different standards: one standard for the state legislature and another standard for local elected officials. And I think it works well locally. I mean, because we have a high level of public trust. We do everything transparently. We can't make a decision unless it's on TV.
Yeah.
We go to your public hearings. There's no response given to people's comments. Everyone just sits there stone faced, and then we find out in the Oregonian what passed and what didn't. And it's like, so.
And I have pointed that very same thing out in multiple caucus meetings, that we hold ourselves to a completely different standard than we hold cities and counties to. And it is damn hard to do the work that they have to do, which should be pretty obvious to the legislature, because that's the reason we're not holding ourselves to that standard. So I know that Rep. Sosa has a bill. I have not gotten to see the language yet. I'm hoping that it's more robust than the rumor I've heard. I'll just put it that way. But I'm going to, as soon as I see it, try and work with him to make it more realistic, because you're right. It's a joke.
Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you. And Senator Neron, thank you very much to hear you're working on that as well. Appreciate you all. I know you guys don't have an easy job, either. And we are your partners. We're all here to work together. Thank you.
You're welcome. I think Mayor Kaiser's got his hand up.
Yeah, good evening, Representative. Question and then a comment, and I'll turn my mic off and listen to you. My first question is, has there been any consideration when it comes to bringing in more budget money to look at programs and projects that are currently failing the state, and taking funding out of that and putting it into projects that are needed, such as transportation? And then my second question is, comment more so. Since 2013 to 2025, revenue has almost doubled in the state. How much more is needed if in that time frame we've gone up almost 100% in revenue coming in? How much more do we actually do need? So I'll mute my mic and listen to your answers.
Complex questions. If you look at us compared to any other state, you're pointing out that the state's revenue has gone up a certain amount. What you're forgetting is the state is having to backfill what should be being paid for by property tax, to the tune of, Senator Neron Mislin, what was it, $11.1 billion in the last The education fund.
I believe it was 11.4.
11.4. $11.4 billion. Right? That's supposed to be property tax. Until 1992, that was a property tax cost. I think the state's portion of the overall education fund was about 10% of it. It's well north of 65% now. And every year it gets worse. And you all know why. Because the cost of running a city, the cost of running a county, the cost of running a fire district is going up faster than 3%. So I know Milwaukee's budget, we are circling the drain. I don't know each of your budgets as well, or at all, for that matter. But I would imagine, talking to several city councilors and mayors around the state, that you're all more or less in the same bucket. Most states have a three-legged stool, right? They have sales tax, they have property tax, and they have income tax. We've chosen not to have a sales tax, and we act like that doesn't matter. It matters a lot. Half of California's transportation funding comes from sales tax. Half. So, first we don't have a sales tax. Then in the early 90s, we cut the leg in half on the property tax, right? So it is roughly half what it would be had that not happened. At least Milwaukee's budget shows that we would have almost twice as much money had Measure 5 and 50 not happened. So we are completely dependent. The state is having to backfill a lot of things for the 20, 30, 50 concept. Why is that? Why do the cities need state gas tax money? That's not normal in most states. We need it because Measure 5 and 50. We need it because we do not have enough money out of our own budgets to pay for that. So the state is backfilling out of the income tax a significant amount of things that should not be coming out of income tax. That's why it looks like when you just, take a slice and look at simply the income tax and say, well, geez, that's been going up a lot. There's been a lot of income. Yeah, and there's a lot of hole coming out of that. So we are underfunding our education system currently. Full stop. We are underfunding our mental health care system currently. Full stop. We are one of the worst states in the nation. I know some of you don't think climate change is the thing we should be working on, but Texas, that bastion of ecologists, has built 10 times more wind and solar in the last few years than Oregon and Washington combined. Why? Because it's the cheapest form of energy. We're 47th in the nation for developing wind and solar. 47th. Why? Because we do not have the funds to do it. So we need an overall revenue fix in our state. That's the bottom line answer.
Well, thank you all for your comments. Mayor Gamba, thank you for your extra effort in responding to our questions. Appreciate your service to all of you that you all provide for us on behalf of the state. We're running short on time, so I want to. We have a quorum. I'd like to see if we can get a motion to approve the minutes, unless there's any edits.
So moved.
So moved. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Is anyone in opposition to approving the minutes? Is there anyone who wishes to abstain from approving the minutes?
I guess I should abstain, actually.
Okay, so one abstention. Okay, the minutes are hereby approved. Thank you. And now we'll go to JPAC impact updates. Mayor Buck.
Man, Commissioner Samus, I don't know. JPAC, we got no money. That's the update. What have we been doing at we don't have we have a meeting on the 15th, but they haven't posted the agenda for it yet. I mean, it would be great sometimes I mean, we've been hearing updates from TriMet. I mean, we're all aware of the cuts, TriMet's making. They've been doing public, outreach and gathering our opinions on that and whatnot. Um, what else, Commissioner, will you help me out? What have we been talking about?
So we're on kind of a loop. Remember, Joe? It's like we're on a
Yeah.
loop with the
Yes.
Community Connectors Transit Study.
Oh, yes.
Yes, we get that update. Safe Streets for All, we get that update each time. The most exciting part of the last JPAC meeting was our very own Jamie Stasny did an update on the Sunrise Corridor project update. So speaking of no money, it's exciting to talk about a project that may or may not ever happen before I die. So yeah. So it's and more and I don't know if I'm on the 82nd Avenue Transit Project Committee as well, which I know it's not part of JPAC, but technically it should be because it's TriMet. But anyway, that's a whole different ball game. But I'm kind of much more vocal and in tune on what's going on there. So
most people don't know this trick.
Yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner Helm. Yes, Metro did create that safe. There is a little bit of a Safe Streets dashboard. At JPAC meetings, they share with us at the beginning all the folks who unfortunately have died in traffic accidents or been hit as a pedestrian, and it's not a it's a horrible list every time. And some questions came up like, whoa, what exact jurisdiction did this person die in? And I don't fully understand the whole, but anyway, they came up with a whole system to really pinpoint, where was it in a county? Was it in a city? What kind of road was it on? A dashboard to help collect some of this data. And of course, JPAC, all the jurisdictions are focused on what solutions are being implemented, to make our streets safer as well. Well, if we have a second, I mean, Commissioner Helmut, do you know, because 82nd Avenue Transit Project is one of the projects like Sunset, is a planning effort, but it was funded through this rough bonding that we did. And then there was, we kind of did one project per county. But I understood that some of the other projects, they were going to leverage, again, more money coming from the state through the transportation package. But then when the package didn't pass, the Band-Aid package didn't include, this additional money. So does that include 82nd? And then that they're not really funded to do anything.
It is partially, it's federally funded. So part of it. Yeah. So I think that's why they're so kind of hell bent on moving forward with it. But there's three different parts of it. So there's three different possibilities. So there's the improved transit along 82nd Avenue, and this is a 7-mile corridor. It's huge. It's the most traveled in the entire Portland region. It's a very important corridor. But they're talking about these BAT lanes, the business access transit lanes, and Clackamas County has the very first BAT lanes that ever were, but they're in an area that has an extremely wide berth for the buses to pull off and has not disrupted businesses where they're trying to put the BAT lanes. And again, this is one of these things, I don't know if anybody could ever talk me into it, but it's going to disrupt a lot of businesses along 82nd Avenue. There's just not, I don't think, the room. But the one improvement, which is the basic one, which I think would do a lot of good, would improve transit times. They are going to improve the bus stops. They're going to be more user friendly. They're going to be anyway. I just have to say, Diana Helm, I don't know the rest of our board. I've talked to them a little bit about it. I'm just pretty opposed to the BAT lanes. I just don't see the value in it for the cost. And there's a lot of vocal people out there that are for this, and I understand, but I just think it needs to be looked at very closely. And I'm trying to do all my homework and make sure. And I've had a meeting with Sam DeSue and others to try to learn more about it. But the more I learn, the more I'm opposed. So it's one of those things. But anyway.
Commissioner, is the project fully funded then?
Not fully, no.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Commissioner Savas and I on JPAC, I mean, that was one of the big things when we did the bonding was like, a lot of people asking like, what is the funding plan? This always seems to be the question. And you never get a clear answer. It's like, what how is this whole project going to get paid for? And no, and then I've been told that's a silly question to ask because this is just how it works. It kind of gets pieced together over time. It's like, is that really what we're doing? None of us are doing that in the city.
Well, no, and
something.
that's part of the problem too. Is they have a huge deficit. TriMet has a huge deficit, right? And yet they want to move forward with this project that's going to cost more. It's going to cost more to maintain. We're going to be using new hydrogen powered buses we have no experience with. How are we going to transport the hydrogen? There's just all these things that I just think we need to put, tap the brake a little bit and say, let's not rush this through. But there's a deadline coming up for this federal funding. So this is why, again, I think we're kind of on this runaway train that I'm a little bit worried about. So.
Well, thank you for your help, Commissioner Helm, with JPAC. And then MPAC, Metro kind of policy issues, they have produced their own kind of housing strategy, like many of us have produced our own housing production strategies. And theirs is kind of centered around support, for cities and looking at how can, and Metro is helpful with some of our growth and provide grants, through our tax dollars we're using one of their grants, and many of us have used Metro grants to do planning, pay for planning that is adding more housing in our communities, which is great. And they are, what was the other thing we've been talking about? MPAC, the kind of
they just reform, and the Future Vision project.
The Future Vision, yes.
And that we'll have the, I think that's coming up on January 15th. Clackamas County is hosting the next committee on that. So committee meeting on that in the DSV building. So
great.
That should be good. Oh, there's Jamie. Hi, she's joining us. Yay.
Yeah, well, we'll have to carry this conversation on 82nd Avenue to the next meeting. I want to add some little bit of history about this project and some of the things that have been discussed here today. But I do know that I'm going to give you the R1 Act update, and then we also have a couple other updates related to that Jamie has and others. So I'm going to start with the R1 Act update. ODOT is reestablishing or redesigning, if you want to call it that, their capital improvement plan, their CIP. So they're trying to do things different. I don't know if anything going on with ODOT right now and the bridges and the projects and the governor's words, not just her statement, but her words, it changes any of that. But we are slated to discuss in February, at the February meeting, changes to the capital plan, identifying projects, limited number of projects in the CIP. So bring your attention to a new way of doing that as opposed to a rolling step. It's going to be a little bit different, and we'll keep you updated on that. Jamie, you had an update?
Good evening, everyone. I'll try and be brief. I know we're short on time. Thanks for giving me a minute to address you. Just wanted to share that it is build grant time at the federal government. Those are grants that are available for generally capital projects. And we're really excited to announce that the county is considering pursuing a build grant for the Sunrise Corridor project that was mentioned earlier. We're trying to get something built in all of our lifetimes. Phase 1 was constructed with some funds from the federal government back in 2010. We're potentially going to seek a build grant to construct the Rock Creek Junction project, which is where Highway 212 and Highway 224 come together. It's a very unsafe intersection, a lot of crashes, a lot of congestion, and a fairly reasonably priced package to be able to construct. The grant would be for $25 million with a $5 million match, which would come from the county as well as our partners. We will be taking this to our board in 2 weeks for their approval, and assuming we will potentially receive their approval, we'll be proceeding. So wanted to let you all know that we are really excited about this opportunity, and also to say we may be seeking some letters of support. We welcome letters of support. We may be asking formally this group to share a letter of support in the future. So I'll let Jamie speak to that. Before I do, I want to mention that we are aware there are some other partners in the region who are going to be applying for build grants. The Confederated Tribes, we have heard, will be applying for a build grant in Oregon City for some projects there that complement the work they're doing. We also heard that our partners in Multnomah County will be applying for a build grant for one of their bridges. So all of that said, we're really excited about the opportunity. We're going to be working hard to put that together, and we'll be bringing that forward to our board for their consideration in 2 weeks. Thank you for your time and happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Thank you, Jamie. And our other Jamie Lorenzini's got an update on the Metro Vision project, I believe.
Yes. So as was mentioned by Commissioner Helm, we have an exciting meeting coming up at the county next week. I am giving you a little bit of stall time if you need to grab a pen and paper or write it down on your computers. But last summer, the Metro Council appointed a Future Vision Commission to recommend an updated 50-year vision for the greater Portland region. And this is foundational to future regional plans, policies, and programs. The Metro Subcommittee received an update at its December meeting last month. All of that to say, the next Future Vision Commission meeting will be held here at the county campus in the Development Services Building Auditorium next Thursday, January 15, from 4 to 6 p.m. In the notes I received, it said to arrive before 4 p.m. to grab a snack and say hello to commissioners and project staff. The meeting will start promptly at 4 p.m. I've heard the topic this month is foresight training. So we hope to see you there.
Great. Jamie, do you have anything? Thank you for that. Do you have anything to add to the 2026 C4 calendar?
No, sir, other than it is in your packets.
Okay, great, great. Is there anything else for the good of the order tonight? Thank you for staying with us for extra couple minutes, but anything for the good of the order? Well, great. Thank you. Happy New Year to y'all. And we'll hopefully have an interesting and positive 2026. So thank you all for coming and drive home safely.